Honestly, right now we're just focused on making RBG Blitz and the Ravine as great as it can be for launch, and we have plans to evaluate the greater PvP reward structure following launch. But right now, nothing we can really publicly share.
It's May the 9th, 2024, and you know why you're here, so let's kick this off right and introduce the players. Hey, I'm Jersar, a WoW esports aficionado.
Hey guys, I'm Big Moran, and it's my birthday tomorrow. Heck yes.
Happy
Heck
birthday.
yes. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm True Sub Jake, and I'm addicted to Minecraft, but it's not as cool as Big Moran's birthday tomorrow, so
That's right.
I'll buy you Minecraft. No, I won't actually.
Isn't it free? What are you buying Minecraft?
I will direct you to the website. I don't know what you do.
You'll give me a mine
Yeah.
to go craft it.
Are you playing it on PC?
No, I'm playing on Switch. This is me traveling, going out and doing different things and playing on Switch and just feeling like all train journeys meld into nothing.
Are you a console e-boy now? Is that what that is?
Yeah, basically, yeah, that's what they call me. That's my name.
A filthy casual, as we used to say. Playing Minecraft on Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, it's terrible. I feel awful.
How far we've fallen.
So, how's that going to work, though, for that LFG streamer thing? Can you actually stream from the Switch, or do you have to do that from your PC now?
No, I am going to have to return to my my devilish ways and go back to actually using a PC for the featured streamer thing that I will be doing. So, very excited for that. Really
Sorry, I want to give you the space right now, though. What is that? How is this going? Like, what's happening there? Because that looked really awesome.
Yeah, so what's really awesome is that I've been invited to play rather stream in what is called it's called LFG. It's a UK based, I guess, like a BlizzCon, but for the south of the UK. There's a lot of things going on in the UK basically, and they've got an opportunity for people to go and actually stream from the event, which I've been invited to do, which I'm really excited to do. And I think it's going to be really awesome. I've got like 3 hours, so I think I'm going to be able to go in there and actually like get some PvP. I think I might be the only PvPer, as far as I'm aware. Like, I have to check out everyone else, but I think I'm the only PvPer. So I'm going to be doing full-on PvP, threes, shuffle, Kata Classic for 3 hours from the Red Bull Gaming Sphere. That is the location. And going to be drinking some Red Bull whilst I stream, and it's going to be exciting. So I'm really happy to do it. And they had to go through a selection process as well, so we all had to apply for it, which was really great. So I'm glad I got selected.
That's amazing. That's awesome. I am a little concerned though if you're going to be doing Soul Shuffle. I mean, is 3 hours going to be long enough? You're only going to get what, 1 or 2 queues, according to Twitter.
Thankfully, I have got a few alts that are not anywhere near any high rating. So hopefully it should be. I might get like 3 or 4 in, but it's something to do at least. You know, I'll just whack it on in the background and play. Yeah, it'll be nice. I'll get like maybe like 4 or 5 games in potentially in 3 hours. So if I'm lucky,
that's good. If you're lucky. Well, at least I'm glad you're there. I'm glad you're going to be showcasing PvP. And just the fact you got into that's awesome. So kudos to you, buddy.
Yeah, no, I think what's really awesome about it is that you'd be surprised there just aren't that many people that are, I guess, into PvP in the UK. Like, the ones that I know are very sparse and like very far away, and they don't tend to like turn up to these sort of things. So going to this sort of event, I feel like I'm very much alone. I know I'm really lucky, actually. I'm fairly sure Bobby DK is going to be there as well. So nice. That's a friend and someone that I know. That's going to be really awesome. So we'll be able to hang out and stuff like that, which would be great. But otherwise, I think it's going to be just really fun to kind of talk to different people, meet all the kind of PvE nerds, and have a chat with them, and obviously try and convince them to come to the dark side. But we'll see. I think it'll be fun.
Awesome. Well, hopefully you get some more. And honestly, I think we've kind of, if you want to lean on to the whole participation meme, the fact that you're the only one out of all the people that are PvP, that kind of fits with the participation nowadays, right? So I'm kidding. I mean, I shouldn't feed the trolls.
I mean, you are like, it's just a natural fact. Like PvP, like what even is PvP anymore? Nobody knows what that is. Just a mini game.
It's just a mini game. Speaking of mini games, I just want to, before we get into, we're gonna say it in the news, but big. You guys had a pretty big launch there. You've been talking it up and hyping the hype. The add-on is out.
Yeah, it was a wild journey of emotions throughout the entire process of releasing this thing. It kind of started as like hey, this would be kind of a cool thing, to, man, this would be an amazing thing if we can get this right. And then it was like, damn, I hope we get this right. And then it was like, damn, I hope this doesn't completely break. It was like complete. It was this roller coaster of like, oh damn, like feeling really good at times, and then sometimes feeling like a lot of doubt. But people really seem to like it. It's, for anyone who's confused what it is, so it's a skill capped add-on is basically like a UI profiler. So once it's installed, you can check some boxes, and the add-on will automatically configure different parts of your UI. So it can configure add-ons like Gladius, weak auras, and so on. It can also set up your edit mode. It will change settings if you want it to. You can decide how little or how much you want us to configure, and it will automatically do it for you with the click of a button, which is pretty cool. I mean, a lot of people tend to complain that setting up a UI for PvP takes, such a long time. You need to know all this information. You don't know what to track. The add-on just basically does all the work for you. Like, I don't know how long it would take to set up the UI from scratch, but I'm guessing it would take a few hours. So it just does a few hours worth of work with just one click of a button. And it's really powerful. There are some settings that it configures that I didn't even know it configured, which are pretty cool. And yeah, it's really exciting. I think it could be something potentially really big. I mean, again, people really seem to like it. And going forward, we're just going to continue making some improvements.
Nice.
How did you get it?
We're working with an add-on developer named Bodhi. He makes a few different add-ons. Better Blizz plates, better Blizz frames, which by those names you can kind of tell what they might do. He also makes an add-on, like a few just lightweight arena add-ons, but yeah, we're working with him because he has his own nameplate and frame add-ons that made our UI a bit more practical to use. Like it's working with someone who already kind of has that architecture. It really makes sense. And so, yeah, it's really exciting.
Awesome. I'm excited to see it. And I saw it show up, and I just, again, like my hard drive went for it was dying, so I spent all weekend trying to transfer it over, and I've just been super busy, so I haven't had a chance to get into it. But once I actually get into it, I'm gonna download that.
Yeah, next week we're going to be releasing a video kind of showcasing exactly how it works.
Cool. All right.
So yeah, I'm excited.
And it'll be up on CurseForge by then too, right?
Yeah. We're waiting for it to get approved.
Yeah, that darn process. All right. Well, need green to pass. I think. Do you want to let's see what you got there? It's your turn, right, Big?
It is my turn.
Oh boy. Let's see what you got, and we'll start talking about need, greed, and pass.
This likely won't be a clean fight, so keep your distance, Harry!
That was a really bad transition. That's okay. Need, greed, and pass. So, like always, Big, you have a scenario with some choices for us, and we're going to pick which ones will need, greed, and pass. And I remind those listening live, shout them out in the Twitch chat, and those listening at home afterwards, pop on over to our Discord and tell us, or any other way you want to get a hold of us, and tell us what your need, greed, and pass is for Big's scenario. On to you, Big.
All right, so this is actually going to be a precursor to the subject of analysis.
Ooh.
So, in this need, greed, and pass, I want to imagine that you are a priest who can cast mind control on a Blizzard developer, okay? And you can have that Blizzard developer focus on one thing in particular for the next expansion. So, it's going to be their primary focus, and this is going to be the thing that's going to be developed the most. So you have three options. Number one are new PvP features. This means things like new battlegrounds, for instance, new arena maps, anything like that. So that's one thing we could have the developer prioritize with our mind control. So the second thing we could have them prioritize is touching up older PvP systems, so maybe go back and look at Solo Shuffle, maybe change how that works, look at BG Blitz, change how that works, and so on. The third thing that we could have the developer work on is class design and tuning. So, of course, it should be quite obvious what that means, but, adding new spells to the game, tuning up older spells, making sure everything is balanced as best as possible going into the new expansion. So we can have the developer prioritize one of those three things. It's going to be new PvP features, touching up older PvP systems, or working on class design and tuning. So what are we going to have them need, or what are you going to need, what are you going to greed, and what are you going to pass on? We'll go to Garrison first.
Oh boy. Okay. This is a good one. Imagine if we could actually mind control a dev and do what we want them to do.
Yes.
So I'm actually, so yeah, I know what people are going to say, but so be it. I'm going to say this. I'm going to need on touching up PvP systems, and not specifically solo queue or BG Blitz and Arena, but I'm going to go older and look at them trying to touch up regular and epic battlegrounds and things like the class stacking that happens. Bunch of people are really concerned about the pre-mades and what happens there, so maybe look at trying to touch that up and figure out ways, maybe get the AI in there to sort that out so that people aren't able to game the queuing system by sync queuing and all that stuff. And I'd like to see, that's what I'm going to need on, and like go really old school stuff there, and maybe even touch up some of the battlegrounds, touch up some of the walls and some of the little quirky stuff there, so that kind of stuff. And then I'm going to greed on the new PvP features, and not just the new BGs, but also I'd like to see some new world PvP free-for-all stuff. Try to get see if there's some more stuff that happens there. Maybe get some more rotation. It seems like they put in like a dabbling, and then it's like the same world quest, the same world PvP events that the gold gets pretty tarnished pretty quickly into season 1, and it never gets added to over an expansion. So I'd like to see that kind of. Actually, I guess I can't really say that. I mean, we had some stuff added in the Emerald Dream, as well as in what was that, the underground area with the Loon guys. So I guess they added like one or two, but it seemed kind of token stuff. I'd like to see a bit more. Yeah,
the underground area with the dudes. That's exactly. I don't even remember what it's called. It's same. That's how I would describe it.
Point in case.
Yeah. I would like to see is some throwbacks to the Burning Crusade. The capture of the towers and you get like a zone buff and stuff like that. I'd like to see that again.
Yeah, it's actually. I don't want to spend too much time talking about this, but have we had like anything remarkably similar to like Tol Barad or Winter's Grasp at all in the past? Nope. Like few. Ashran was maybe the last one.
Yep.
That was like that.
Yep.
Because
Ashran was the last world zone.
Yeah, I mean, I know we have like the weekly Sparks quest now, which kind of fills that spot, but it's not the same, like you don't, like the Sparks quest is kind of something you could kind of passively do, while like Ashran, I kind of felt like you're more engaged in this sort of battle,
Totally.
Like Sparks is just kind of a mess, if I'm being honest. I mean, I enjoy it, but at the same time, it's very forgettable.
You don't actually have to PvP to earn sparks too. Just go around and do world quests and collect boxes and mine dirt piles, and you can finish that in about an hour.
Sounds good. Good PvP.
Yeah. So of course, then I'm gonna have to pass on the class design and tuning. Not that shouldn't be a focus, but I feel like it's going to always happen anyways. They're always changing things, so like, yeah. Okay, that's my actually, Jake, I want to hear what yours are.
So I think for me, I mean, it's a very good question, right? Like it's sort of, you're really having to weigh up what you think is useful and what you think should be a focus, right? So for me, I think personally, the biggest thing that messes up WoW PvP and the thing that we need the most, you know, like a priority, and the thing that makes things the most fun for me is class design and tuning. Like for sure. When you go in and you play, like when I was playing demo in season 1, I enjoyed that. I had fun. It was exciting. It was good. I liked it. Like when Shadow Priest was good at the beginning, when things were good and the class design was good before the rep change, like that for me was ideal. I was like, Dragonflight is going to be insane for PvP. We have all the you know, with the gearing, everything, like perfect, absolutely perfect. And as soon as the class design and the tuning went with the rep rework, and it was bad, like, and they were insane, everyone's opinion and everyone's feeling on how the game was going was turned on its head. You could feel it. Everyone. That's the truth of it all. And that's what I think is the most important for me. Like if I could, you know, have a gun to their head, like this is what needs to be done, I would make sure that class design and tuning is the first thing that is really fixed on, because if they're designing for PvP, then great. You know, I think we've got a lot of things to do already. So for me, that would be number 1. Number 2 would be touching up PvP systems, because I think if I was to, need class design, tuning, greed, touching up the PvP systems, because we have some great systems. Rated Solo Shuffle was a great addition, for sure, a great addition. Yes, it takes away from threes, but you know what? It's a great addition, and it has to be said, it is a great addition. And I think we don't really, I personally don't think we don't need anything more, at least for a couple of expansions, to kind of change how PvP is. Yeah, we probably need a new BG as well at some point, but for me, it's not like a massively necessary thing. We should focus on what we have and improving what we have and making what we have the best thing possible for everyone's satisfaction, so that everyone gets back involved and everyone stays playing WoW PvP through the first season and into the later seasons. So yeah, I would touch up the PvP system to make sure that, you know, for example, healers don't go 3-3 and lose MMR, for example, in Solo Shuffle, and that sort of thing. That would be what I do. And then I would pass on the new PvP features. As I said, I don't think it's necessary right now. Like, I was never fussed about a new BG. It's nice, but I don't think we need anything else. I personally don't think we needed Battleground Blitz. I feel like it would be way better to have something else. So yeah, that's kind of my feelings on the whole situation.
All right. And Big?
Yeah, I actually have the same answer to Jake. I think class design is, for me, a priority, just because I think being able to feel good pressing the buttons is the most important thing for having a good game. And, you know, I generally enjoy WoW the most when I'm playing a class that I feel like is really fun. I'll always say, like, when I played Combat Rogue back in Warlords of Draenor, I really enjoyed it. It was really fun. I mean, maybe it was a little bit overpowered, but I felt like the design of the class was, like, good, and I really liked it, and that gave me the motivation to play. I'm not really super motivated by new maps or anything like that. I think they're cool. I think they're nice. I think they are very they're a good thing for a certain part of the community. But for me, who's like focused on arenas, you know, that class design comes first, and then what comes after that would be PvP systems. Making sure that there's correct incentive structures, and as Jake said, there aren't these problems like healers going 3-3 and losing MMR, things like that. So I think for me, class design and good systems are what motivate me to play, and so that would be where I make most of my my efforts, or that's where I'd want a designer to make most of their efforts, is in those two things.
All right, interesting. I like how we have somewhat diverging ideas. Be interested to see what other people think.
Yeah, and it's funny. I don't know if we want to talk about this now or after the interview, but it's very apparent to me that there's kind of these two camps within PvP.
Yep.
These two factions that don't really see each other that often, right? The battleground crowd and the arena crowd, and there's not that much overlap, I don't think, but in between both of them. I think they kind of all stay on their sides.
Yeah.
Which is, and that's not to say that there aren't people who do both. Certainly there are.
Yeah.
But it just feels like when you play PvP, you kind of go down one of those paths. And we were talking, in our chat the other day, we were like, I mentioned that I think that Arena has more players, and you thought that probably BGs have more players. I'm very curious to see what actually has more players.
I am
because I think that's kind of a revealing of our own little biases. Is like, if I think my side has more people, you think your side has more people.
Yep.
No wonder that we sometimes clash on things. And I'm not saying you and I, but these two communities sometimes don't see eye to eye.
No.
Because I think they all see they see their own side as being the majority, which is kind of interesting. So yeah,
I think it's interesting that Blizzard has put so much focus on 3v3 arena and arenas in general that they kind of push that. So then I think a lot of people thought that helped bolster the idea that was the epitome and the harder and the more difficult and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I think the hardest part to say, which one's more popular, we will never know, because the API that Blizzard has is very restrictive and only provides the top 5,000 of each ladder, and none of it's unrated.
Well, what's interesting, I remember I recently watched an old BlizzCon video from BlizzCon 2004, I believe, like the very first BlizzCon, and it was one of the OG devs, I don't remember his name, talking on, I think the guy named Alex, I don't remember. Is there a guy named Alex? I think there's a guy named Alex.
There was, yeah.
Anyway, he was talking on stage about how even back then there was this idea that, rating is for the top 1%. Like, why are you making the game for the top 1%?
Yeah.
And he actually revealed on the Blizzard stage how many instances of Zul'Gurub happen during peak hours and every day, or how many instances of Molten Core, Onyxia. So I'd be curious to see. I mean, they certainly have probably some data on how many Arathi Basin instances are created every day, and they can do that for every BG. So I'm just curious what those numbers are out there somewhere, on Blizzard's end, and it'd be really interesting to see what truly has more players. Just curious, Jake, what do you think has more players? Do you think it's BGs or arenas?
It is. You know what? That is a very interesting question, and I feel like a Blizzard dev right now, because I'm going to say that's a great question. I'm going to have to check it.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
We're actually talking
seriously,
about that. We're going to have to get back to you.
We'll get back to that. We'll get back to that. You know what? That is an active conversation we're having right now. And that's a good question. No, I think it's an interesting one, because realistically speaking, arena players also do BGs, right? Like a lot of them do. So how much? So I would start by going, how many of us are crossovers? Like, how many people that mostly play BGs do arenas? Like that. Let's say that's the casual player base. They probably won't do arenas, right? They mostly just spam BGs for fun. Whereas a lot of arena players play BGs and do rated BGs for whatever reward side of things there might be. So I think personally, BGs probably does have an edge, because it's content that everyone does to a degree. at some point. Like everyone queues up a BG now and then when they're bored, they want to do something, they just want to have a bit of fun. But also those people that are grinding honor, that are doing other bits and pieces, there is a definite, like, you know, there is a crossover. People that play arena will also play BGs, but if you play BGs, you don't necessarily play arena because you may be more interested in that kind of casual side of things. Obviously, RBGs has that sort of strange sort of aspect to it where all they play is RBGs, and like very rarely you have people that actually play arena from RBGs.
Maybe I just have brain rot from creating content, but I truly think you can maybe guess the size of these things by just how much content is created within those spaces, and like how I mean, you might disagree. Well, you might disagree, but my question to you would be like, why are there no like super big battleground streamers? If it's so popular, why is there no one like making it to the top of Twitch streaming BGs?
I mean, yeah, great question. I know that there's a number of high-rated RBG players that will stream, but they don't stream a lot of the time because they're trying to keep their tactics secret. So it's only until like later into a season you'll really start them you really see them streaming.
Then I know that there
information cold war is what it is.
I know people do stream BGs because there was, you know, people within those pre-made communities, which, you know, that's its own topic, but some of the pre-made leaders would stream.
Yeah.
But that's really the only time that's really the only time I saw BGs, like epic BGs, being kind of towards the top of Twitch.
I also think a lot of people, like, you know, because people pew on stream on epic BGs and random BGs so much, I don't think people think that it's a valid content, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you know, why LFR is wildly popular. There's a whole bunch of instances of LFR every day.
Oh, that's
why aren't
true.
there LFR streamers?
That's
Probably
so
because they
weird.
got pooped on by a bunch of people. Oh, why are you playing that? That's window licker mode. Yeah.
Interesting.
I will say this. So on any given night, if I hop into the game and I queue up for a random or an epic BG, I'm probably sitting anywhere from 4 to 7 minute queue time. So it's 4 to 7 minutes for the system to match me up with 10, 15, or 40 other players. What's the average queue time at, let's say, 1800 in 3v3?
Probably under a minute. It's like
rating?
Okay.
Yeah, he's at under 1800. I mean, it's
okay.
It's definitely under like a minute. It's
sure
maybe like 15 seconds, 30 seconds.
You'd be surprised. Like, you know, I think earlier on in the season when normally there's a massive spike, like anything at sort of 1800 MMR was taking over a minute to 2 minutes. It was a strange time period for sure. But then as time, are we talking solo shuffle or are we talking?
No,
well, I said 3v3, but actually solo shuffle would be more appropriate because at least that's actually doing player matching. You're solo queuing, which is the same as solo queuing for randoms and epics, right?
15,
it's pretty
15.
So. Yeah, it's a bit faster right now for DPS, and again, it's like instant for healers most of the time. You know, less than.
It's faster now because the LFG system's broke, but that's a different conversation for another time.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of another conversation, though, we are about 30 minutes in, so why don't we get into the subject of analysis and actually talk about, let's talk about an interview we did.
I'm gonna light you up, sweet cheeks.
Yeah. So, interview. In case anybody doesn't know, and nobody saw anything to date, either on our YouTube or anything, we had an interview with a producer in the combat dev team. So, producer being hierarchy, he's not a designer or a developer, but he like oversees them. George Velov, and he sat down with us and Venruki, and we asked a bunch of questions, and he gave the answers of what he knew and what he, and took some of the things back from what we said and was like, yeah, I'll look into that. So why don't we go into this? And what we're gonna do is kind of go through it. So obviously, Jake, you weren't there with me and Big.
No,
but
sadly.
I know, we missed you, man.
I could have been that. Hey, governor, what you say about PvP? That would have been me, right? That was my input, right? I'm like the token English guy that's in the corner going, that funny European, you're funny, and that'll be it. That's me.
That's not why you'd be there. I'm sure you'd have some very valid questions to ask him, and probably follow-ups to some of the stuff he said. But is this going to be the first time you've seen this, or have you watched it before?
I know I have watched it. I haven't. Okay. In terms of my actual reactions, I've been sort of holding off, really thinking about it until we had an opportunity to really sit there and listen back. Okay. But obviously, I have listened to the whole thing. Okay.
All right, good. Okay, so not new, but still newish. So okay, why don't we fire this up? And we will see. Well, so we'll go through it, and we're going to give kind of our reactions along to what George said. So here we go.
So, all right, cool. George. First of all, pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with all three of us and talk about what's coming up in the War Within. First and foremost, though, could you please introduce yourself, just so everybody out there knows who you are and what you do there at Blizzard?
Yeah, hello. My name is George Veliv. I'm the combat producer working on the World of Warcraft team. I primarily produce content for combat design, so things like PvP, obviously, classes, tuning, things of that nature. Do want to call out, though, that I'm a producer. I'm not a designer. My goal as producer is to sort of guide, facilitate, and ensure content is shipped. I do have the privilege of working with a lot of talented designers, engineers, artists, all who work on PvP content. And I produce PvP content in Shadowlands, so I'm sort of aware how things are built and how things are sort of made. But fundamentally, I'm the producer for the team, not a designer of any sort.
Awesome. If you don't mind, just to iterate on something, were you doing something before his production on another platform or another game before you came over to Blizzard, or is this your you jumped in there and took the Shadowlands by the horns?
I like that saying. I was on the World of Warcraft QA team before, and then I got my first production gig working at Shadowlands. Yeah, at Shadowlands. Excellent. On Shadowlands.
Well, and here we are now. Dragonflight is just in the sunset. We're looking at the War Within, and as you said, and you talked in a number of other interviews, there's the new battleground coming in, right? The Deep Hall Ravine. So it's been spoken of as, if I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was like a mixture of Arathi Basin with Silvershard Mines. Is that kind of how I heard it?
I would say it's more like Eye of the Storm in Silvershard Mines, but pretty similar. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's interesting because Eye of the Storm, you have your towers, so that's King of the Hill. Plus, you have the flag in the middle, which has to capture the flag to get your extra points and whatnot. How are the points actually working though for this? Because I saw it has carts moving, which always have the circle. So I guess that's your King of the Hill idea, where if you stand inside the circle, you gain points or resources. Is that correct, or is this just so long as you capture at the end of the capture point for the cart?
It might be simpler if I walk you through. I know there hasn't been a really big opportunity to see the battleground yet, so maybe I can walk you through how it sort of works. So yeah, like you mentioned, there are carts. The way it works is both sides spawn on opposite sides of the battleground, both factions. And right when you sort of jump in the battleground, there's a cart right in front of you. You can sort of convert it to your faction and take it all the way to then the cart trail. The other side does the exact same thing. Halfway through, they sort of collide, and they collide at the end as well. So there's a lot of opportunities for combat there. But like you mentioned, when you control a cart, you get trickle points over time, and when you cap the cart, you get a lump of points as well. In terms of how it's sort of similar to Eye of the Storm, at the very middle of the battleground there is a flag, or it's sort of more like a gemstone cluster, and you can take that flag and basically cap it at 2 points in the map. They're sort of when you jump into the battleground, if you make a right, that's where the cart starts, and if you make a left, that's sort of where one of the cap locations is. And you can take that flag and take it all the way up the hill to the cap location to get, more points. Sort of different. You don't really own the capture points. Anyone can cap it anywhere. So even if I started on, let's say, the east side of Deep Hall Ravine, I could take the gemstone flag all the way to the west side and cap it there as well.
Okay.
So I'm gonna jump in on this. So thinking about what he was talking about, I'm really like, especially for rated and that, I'm seeing this as an opportunity still for demon hunters or guardian druids to kind of capture that, and I suspect they'll probably be trying to be doing something like hold on to it until they have an advantageous moment of capping the node or capturing that flag for the additional points. But yeah, I can kind of see it. So Eye of the Storm mixed with Silver Shard Mines. We got carts. They crisscross in the middle. Should be interesting. Nethy, yeah, of course, bringing in the Evoker. You aren't wrong. Deep breath, and then you got easy cap.
Wait, I don't. I feel stupid for not knowing this, but can you deep breath with a flag in Battlegrounds?
I actually don't know.
That's a good question.
I know you can't.
I haven't tried it.
You can't bubble, like
yeah, you can't bubble. Well, bubble makes you drop the flag.
Yeah.
I know you can't night elf, and yeah, Nethy said you can, and it makes you CC immune.
Pretty good.
Well,
Nerf evokers. Sorry, what?
Yeah.
I said Nerf evokers. I think it's interesting. I think they keep coming back to this kind of concept of carts and flags and stuff like that. I think the original variant of the mop one that we had, cannot remember its name for the life of me for whatever reason. That's it. The original version of that was beloved, and everyone really liked it. But it then came across problems in Legion with how demon hunters worked, and then you had and then also on top of that, people would play that map, and if you got even like 1 point ahead, they knew that you would then win, and then so people left. Like it was almost like a useless map. So I think it's nice that they're kind of going into this concept and kind of trying to provide different aspects for rated BGs to work. But even from if we look at it from a casual point of view, it sounds like it's quite fun. You can go any direction. It's all almost kind of like there isn't one side versus the other. They're sort of bringing that mentality of how the story's progressing. So you can capture any side, and you just got to get one. Got to get one one mine across with your team, and that's what you got to do. So I think it sounds interesting.
What I like too is I think the BGs that tend to be the most fun are the ones where it's kind of telegraphed where you need to go.
Yeah.
Right. And if you have these moving King of the Hill carts, you kind of know where you need to go, and you can kind of can expect people to be there. Hopefully. Yeah. Compared to other BGs where things, like for instance, speaking of Deepwind Gorge, like the revamped Deepwind Gorge is kind of a mess. It's a 5-node map, and just can't count on people being in the places they need to be. But these carts make it pretty obvious.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I am curious how this map is going to play in BGB though, because with the extra bounce speed in that, it's going to be nuts. So.
Yeah.
We'll see. Wait, we're gonna get to that in a sec, but here, let's hear what the rest of you has to say.
Oh, neat. Okay, so definitely you have 2 places where you can capture it, and then I'm assuming you could also take over the other cart as well. So if you really wanted to dominate, you could really have your team owning 2 carts and capping all that at the same time. So similar to Eye of the Storm, though, obviously owning towers is important. Getting those resources is important. The more resource, I don't want to go the whole nuances of that, but the capturing of the flag is definitely a bonus. Is the capturing of the gemstone just as lucrative, or is it like, I'm just kind of what are the points balances here? What are we looking at?
Right. From a numbers perspective, you need 1,500 points to win the battleground. Capturing the gem, all this to say is all these numbers are things that we're tweaking quite a bit. We tweaked them as early as like last week in preparation for public alpha. So a lot of this is stuff that will be adjusted over time. Currently, capturing the flag or the gemstone is 150, and owning a minecart as it sort of gets capped is 100. So fundamentally, yes, the flag is the most sort of lucrative as of right now, although we still want to make all 3 objectives, the 2 minecarts and the flag, roughly equal in terms of priority, because the flag won't always be up.
Oops. Okay, I like it. I like it. And looking at the videos and the pictures, it looks like there's a Z-axis. So look, there's some things.
Actually, I'm going to pause. I just realized I forgot to ask one question that was really pertinent in my brain, and that's with Silver Shard Mines. When you kill somebody inside of the cart, I know it helps you gain control of the cart faster. There's kind of like a pseudo point system there in the King of the Hill part, but I can't remember as if you kill people inside the cart if you also get points in Silver Shard Mines. But I want to say yes. And I'm kind of wondering if that's the same thing in this one. I'm assuming they're using the same calculator system, so probably, but that's just my bad. I forgot to ask about that. Anyway,
there's some upper head terrain. You can definitely have like that higher ground advantage. Is that actually like, can you actually get up there, and do you actually have like a Z-axis where you can really mess with players, or is that just for looks and you're kind of stuck within this funneled zone?
No, there's a ton of high ground gameplay, which is super exciting. So as I mentioned, those 2 cap locations where you can take the flag back, they're on hills, so you need to go up. The end locations for each cart have hills nested towards them as well. So if you're playing like, a ranged DPS, like a hunter or a mage, you can sort of like snipe on the enemy from above as they're trying to sort of control the cart near the end. Okay. I guess the most exciting thing, in my opinion, for the battleground, though, is at the very top, connecting the 2 bases, there is this very long, like, minecart track, and it has something that we're calling the cart vehicle, which is super not final, but it's essentially a vehicle that you can take that lets you basically travel from one end of the battleground to the other one, probably over the course of like 2-3 seconds. So it allows for some like very, very fast positioning from both sides. So you could like, do ganks, or if you see someone going for the flag and you're defending your base, you can take the minecart immediately and just sort of like catch them off guard. And that's sort of one of the more unique parts of the battleground that I'm really excited for.
It's like ziplining across the ravine.
Yeah, exactly. But you're on a minecart because it's
awesome.
themed. Yeah,
I like it. I will say I don't think a hunter really needs to get that much close to like up on a hill to get some advantage, because the hunters can actually shoot across probably the whole map if everything stays the same.
It's a big map. But yeah.
Okay. All right. I guess last but not least, graveyards. I mean,
before I get into that, so he says it's a big map. Not sure exactly what he means by that. That seems like kind of an arbitrary conversation.
What is the measurement of big map?
Yeah, I forgot to ask him.
I mean, looking at the video that was posted by Mr. GM, it looked like it was around the size of like Twin Peaks.
Okay.
From end to end. I mean, that's kind of the gut feeling I got in terms of like War Song Gold's Twin Peaks size. So,
okay, so that's a fair size.
I don't think it should be any bigger than that. I feel like if it was huge, you'd just be really bored, like running so far, like trying to get this mine across that it's just never going to work. You're going to end up having stalemates all the time.
So my only concern is, this is a 10v10 map. So for 10v10, I mean, Twin Peaks is also 10v10, so that's about an appropriate amount of size. When we start looking at 8v8 with Battleground Blitz, there's like a fine line of being too far and too close. Like Deepwing Gorge in BG Blitz is really weird because like you're running around all over the place. The way the node, and it's also like the nodes cap and they become protected. You have to wait from there's a whole bunch of stuff there. So it's I hope if it's around Twin Peaks, that should be a good size. Should be.
Yeah. To be fair, the thing that really worries me more than anything is it is just the way that, like, if I imagine it in RBGs, whichever team wins the team fight just wins automatically, right? Pretty much. So if they win the team fight and then they'll always have the mines. They'll have, like, I don't know, is it like, do the 2 mines, are they assigned to each team, or could you technically have both mines? Like minecarts, sorry.
The minecarts it's just like Silver Shard. They're untapped until somebody captures them.
Until someone, so you could have.
So they start at
2.
Yeah, so they start at either end, and then they move up, and then they cross, and they literally like cross over top of each other, and then they come back and then they cross back the other way and then they go
Yeah,
to their.
I mean, that makes
it seems like one of those things. Like if you are like at a deficit in a team fight, you should maybe focus on the crystal. You know, I think that's probably the philosophy. Is like just like in Silver Shard, you can turn the carts.
Yeah.
And you know, there's probably ways to play where it's like even if you suck at the team fight, you can maybe scrap out a win in a different way. But I understand like what you're saying. It's like in these sort of maps, what tends to happen is like one team just will dominate the team fight over and over and over and over. But I think the fact that the carts kind of go in completely opposite directions and only kind of converge one time might prevent that in some ways, you know? Again, the crystal being this sort of wild card, that might be part of balancing out strong team fights.
Yeah, which was kind of my question about the points and that, because like for Eye of the Storm, it, you know, historically you could win with one tower and just recapping the flag.
Yeah, I'm guessing the points are probably going to be pretty similar. Like maybe capturing a cart is going to be very similar to capturing the crystal. If I had to guess, just so you kind of have that balance.
Yeah,
but
I think that's that point system. That's what he was saying, is they're still kind of tweaking the
right
differentials. Yeah. And chat, you're totally right. 3 objectives, 8 people, 8v8. There's not a lot of room for in some ways. I think with Battleground Blitz and for randoms, you're going to end up with a lot of people getting very tunnel visioned on specific, they're going to get sucked into a fight and be there, and meanwhile a bunch of people are going to run around and just cap carts. And once you get into like the raid of Battleground, though, I think there's definitely a lot of chance for nuance there. So
yeah, I think that maybe might be the one thing that kind of keeps things alive, is that, at least for RBGs, is that you have a new BG that comes in, great, but also the nuances of how people will play, Battleground Blitz versus rated Battlegrounds, because obviously the numbers is different, means that, some people might prefer that kind of full team game as opposed to sort of just queuing up solo to get their sort of rating high in BGB. Like, I feel like there's going to be a difference in the same way that people queue solo shuffle and they know, what, actually the massively dampening situation really suits my class. That's fun. I go into 3s, don't have the same thing. Yeah, I don't enjoy that as much as I do, or the other way around. And you kind of have this focus. I think the big thing for maybe Battleground Blitz as being a positive is the fact that newer people to the RBG scene might actually get their names known within that community, in the same way that solo shuffle has allowed, certain individuals who originally would never have dreamed of playing at rank 1 level, to give them the opportunity to do so. And I think that's really cool. So that would be my hope for that. And I do think this new BG sounds interesting. It's just, my worry would be that from an RBG perspective, there would be a clear decider. And if you it's like Temple of Kot Mogu. If you lose that first team fight and you've done this big team fight, most of the time you're going to keep losing it, because you just, either the players on your team aren't good enough to do it, or they just suck. And I think no matter how many times you try and do the objective, what ends up being like a big contributor is how you work as a team and actually team fight. So, but I think it will have some really cool strategy based concepts, and I think that'd be really interesting to see. I
will say, I think the ping system is also going to alleviate some of those issues, especially in the unrated and rated versions of that, like just the communication stuff. Okay, let's move on. So the next question I had was, I think, graveyards.
Graveyard camping is always as much as nobody likes nobody likes having it done to them, I guess I should say. Some people like doing it. Just where in the situation, for situational awareness, where would those graveyards be? Or is it like right where you're spawning points, or is it again off to the side somewhere?
Very close. Going back to graveyard camping, in general, we don't really sort of like to encourage that gameplay. So the graveyards that we have set out are inaccessible to players trying to sort of like jump on top of them or sort of attack from there.
I can
The
guarantee
locations of
people
the
are gonna figure a way
graveyards.
to
So
get
there
into
are
those.
2 at the very beginning. So there's when you start and you die eventually, hopefully not, but sometimes it happens. There's a graveyard sort of very close to where you actually start from the very beginning. There's also 2 graveyards sort of near to the middle,
For sure.
and those graveyards will update depending on the state of the battleground as well. So in total 4, 2 at the very beginning from both sides, and 2 near the middle as well.
Oh, wow. So is
None
that
of which
going
can
to
be
be
camped.
is that going to be similar to a lot of the other battlegrounds where you spawn depends on your proximity to the graveyard where you die?
That is the current thinking, yes. But that all that
Okay.
stuff that we're still sort of messing around on our end, seeing what makes most sense.
Okay, I can kind of see it being like Twin Peaks then, where if like you die far the farthest end of the map, you spawn at the other side of the map, kind of thing, or something like that. One last question. I'm assuming this is going to be like available to all the different play modes. You got randoms, you got solo queue, dual queue technically, pre-made battlegrounds. Is the map going to be the same for every one of those battlegrounds, or is it going to be somewhat different depending on the play mode you're in?
It's going to be fundamentally it's going to be the same in terms of like how it works for content like BG Blitz. It'll have the standard, mount speed increases, faster point acquisition, but across the modes like random BGs, RBG Blitz, and rated battlegrounds, the map will play fundamentally the same, just slightly faster on those blitz maps.
Fair enough. And it's going to have those funkier buffs as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't like the leaf? So yeah, the leaf, berserking, cooldown reduction, all the sort of things that you're used to as power-ups are going to exist in the default ravine as well.
Cool. All right.
You can tell he's a healer just because the first thing he thought of was the leaf. Sorry.
That was it for me about the battlegrounds. Ven,
I think Ven's the next stuff.
Big
He's
Brian.
gonna start
Either of you
going
have
over
any
his
other questions about the battlegrounds, or do you want to carry on with the stuff that you wanted to ask about?
I think that covers it pretty nicely for me. At least, what about you, Will?
Yeah, it covers it for me as well.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds awesome. I had a few questions for you about some things PvP in War Within. The first one I wanted to ask you about was tier was brought back in Dragonflight, and for PvPers, we shared tier with Mythic Plus players as well as raiders. I just wanted to ask you: is the team happy with how shared tier kind of played out, or is PvP specific tier something that maybe we can look forward to?
So for launch, we're not planning on PvP specific tier, and overall, we're really happy with how PvE tier has affected PvP gameplay. At its core, it's something that all players sort of chase, regardless of the content that they're doing, and we like that. Additionally, since it's seasonal, since the class sets are seasonal, it lets us sort of like shake up the meta every single season, due to the fact that those class sets are also part of PvP, and that's something we also enjoy. So as of right now, I'm not currently planning to do PvP tier sets for the War Within launch.
All right, hot takes. What do you guys think about remaining with PvE tier in the War Within?
Yeah, that was it. That was definitely really interesting because I can kind of see maybe his perspective on players like the tier, but it's just, in my experience with specifically making tier lists, no pun intended, like it's quite clear that tier sets have a profound effect on class balance within a season. To give you a very practical example, or a very relevant current example, Preservation Evoker is arguably one of the best healers right now in PvP, and Resto Shaman was a really good healer last season, but is kind of falling off this season. And the main thing that happened between both of those specs is Preservation Evoker got a really good tier set this season, Resto Shaman got a much weaker tier set this season, and that's why they actually buffed Riptide recently. Because its tier set, they lost a lot of healing modifiers on Riptide with the loss of their tier set, so it's pretty crazy that it can have such a profound effect on class balance within a season that I don't know why they just wouldn't do a PvP tier, especially because they wind up putting modifiers on the PvP tier, the PvE tiers anyway, and sometimes they can get bugged, like we saw with the AWC last season, where the Demon Hunter tier set was bugged the entire season, and doing way more damage than it should. So it just seems like such a mess to have PvE tiers in PvP. I mean, maybe they just don't have the time to make PvP tier sets, but it just seems like too much to try to balance. I don't know why they would want to continue moving forward with it.
Yeah. Jake, what's your hot take?
Yeah, I mean, I think the major problem is that how much disparity there is between the tier sets. Like, some of them are just like incredibly lazy. Like, I'll be truthful, they are very lazy. Like, some of them are like, Fist of Fury has a 40% increase in damage. Why is Fist of Fury getting a 40% increase in damage? And then why is this random talent that I use, like, for example, I think the Destro one was a big example. Like, you just get a random crit on something. It's like, what's that actually going to do? That does very little for me. And I think that's the difference. Sort of some specs get this amazing, massive boost to their DPS, and then other specs get nothing. And that's horrible. Like, how can they sit there and go, this is exactly the design we want, and then go, well, in PvP, you have such a disparity between the tier sets. Yes, I like what he was saying about it adds a different bit of flavor in, like it shakes up the meta. That's fine. But if you're going to shake up the meta, do it by like making everything interesting and make your tier sets with both content in mind. Like, don't just buff, like a big example of this for it is Glacial Spike for Frost Mage. Like majority of Frost Mages aren't going to cast Glacial Spike in PvP, you know? Like, it's sort of, you wouldn't normally do that. You'd have other abilities that you press, like Ray of Frost or
like chance of getting actual Glacial Spike cast off is slim to
exactly. It's very low into a double melee cleave with a Fist Weaver. So why do that? Why make the design as it is and then say we're very happy with PvP tiers? With PvE tier being in PvP if you're not actually thinking about the PvP side of it when you make the PvE tier. Now that may change, and if that changes, like if they start to think about it and reduce how impactful tier is and make it sort of like, oh yeah, it's quirky, like adds a little interesting bit of gameplay to how things work, then with your class and spec, absolutely, I agree. But I think realistically speaking, it's just I found that to be slightly more disturbing in the sense that it was kind of going, that's exactly how we want it to be. And it's like, okay, well then why this? Like, I would have had, maybe there's further follow-up questions. But again, you don't want to shoot the messenger. We've had this amazing opportunity to speak with someone that's involved in the design process, maybe not necessarily a designer themselves, but involved in the design process. So why would we want to break those bridges by being overly harsh and negative when we can kind of listen to what they say and then continue to open that channel of communication? So for me, that I think it's good to ask these questions, and there's probably no need for me to then continue pushing on that point. But I think personally, I think it's a shame that there doesn't seem to be any real thought in the tier sets when it comes to PvP. It's just sort of random specs getting extra damage boost for no reason.
I think we're kind of all in the same thing. And I think it was Level Adden was even saying, I think last season, the PvP tier set actually didn't even help. Or the PvE tier set didn't even help. So like, don't even bother with the tier set. I think season 1 or season 2? Was it DK? I think it was like it buffed their Army of the Dead, which you couldn't even use in arenas, so it was useless. Like, so I hear what you're saying. If a little read between the lines, and call me if I'm tinfoil hatting this too much, but to me, I'm kind of wondering if that was a neat way of them saying we really like PvE tier sets because we can make certain classes strong, which then forces a meta change. So in that way, we know that some of the tier sets are poop, but we're okay with that because then that means, Evoker is specifically strong in season 3, but in season 4 it's going to be weaker, or it was weak in season, that kind of stuff, right? And maybe that's actually it. I don't know. Maybe
No, I think there's a good point for thinking that, Gareth. I think genuinely that actually might be a way that they figure out balancing. You know, when we're sitting there going like, "Where's the balancing? What's happening? What's going on?" And we haven't had anything, but then this new tier set kind of comes in. Maybe that is a way that they managed to balance it by giving, you know what, okay, when Walker was struggling, let's up the damage this way through tier set. I get that, and I think that might be a thing they do. I just personally think that's not a great way of doing it. Like, it would be better if the tier sets did something interesting. Like, I think actually a lot of Demonology Warlocks tier sets are very interesting. Like the way that their current one, Doombrand, you put like a ticking dot on there that is reduced by when you cast Hannah Gul'dan, and then when it procs and it does damage, there's a chance for a Doomguard to appear who launches Shadow Bolts. Now that is cool. I like that. Interesting. It doesn't do a huge amount of damage. It's just an extra bit of damage. Like another pet, for example. That's really interesting. And it could have very cool ways that it interacts with your kit if you still played like Big Tyrant, for example. Like, I think there's awesome ways of doing it. I just think sort of giving things flat damage increases is just lazy.
Oh yeah, no, I don't disagree with you there. Yeah, you get an extra 5% crit and an extra 2% damage. Woo! All right, let's hear what else he says to the next question.
Okay, cool. And for the record, I have enjoyed the seasonal gameplay and mixing it up and stuff like that. So that's cool. Another question that I had for you was for both rated 3v3 and solo shuffle. We've gotten seasonal titles, so you have like Verdant Gladiator, Verdant Legend, for example. RBGs, and especially with solo queue RBGs coming in, is there any plans to do like seasonal specific titles for that content as well?
It's a good idea. Honestly, right now we're just focused on making RBG Blitz and the Ravine as great as it can be for launch, and we have plans to evaluate the greater PvP reward structure following launch. But right now, nothing we can really publicly share.
Okay.
Honestly, I'm concerned. I think we saw some achievements in the data mining, but
yeah.
What are you gonna say, Big?
Well, geez, isn't it crazy? Like, how long have RBGs been out? Since Cataclysm, so since 2011.
Yep.
If they haven't added titles by now, there's probably some weird philosophy as to why they haven't. And he seems like he's kind of dismissive about his answer, like, oh, that's a good idea. They definitely know that people have been asking for that for ages.
Oh yeah.
So I'm just wondering why they haven't done it. And I don't know, like maybe there's got to be some justification, like some big brain explanation, or it's just a really silly explanation. It just seems weird to me because it's been something that's been asked for so long. There must be some reason we don't know about as to why they haven't done it yet. It's not like they aren't aware of it. That's impossible. There's no way they're not, right? Every other form of content has some rank 1 title.
Mm-hmm.
So why not RBGs? There's got to be some explanation that we just don't know.
The only thing I can think of is that when rated battlegrounds were first added, they were after the fact. Arenas were already kind of like their epitome of hardest content. I feel like rated BGs might have been added in as like a nicety kind of thing. It was like in the middle kind of thing. But yeah, I don't think they wanted to give it as much oomph behind it as they were giving behind arenas. And that could have been, it could go back to dollar value of production. They can only put so many dollars into doing this and that. I also kind of wonder if when they made Raid of Battlegrounds, if they just didn't program it in, and it's just like, now it's like too late, and they don't want to because it's too late, which arguably is just as stupid. But
there's got to be some stupid explanation or some really like crazy tinfoil hat conspiracy explanation, because they're definitely aware of it. Like, there's no way you're right. They cannot be unaware of this discrepancy if it's been over 10 years that this has been the case, right? It's impossible.
I don't know. Ostriches can keep their heads in the sand for a really long time.
I guess.
Jake, you good with the answer?
I mean, I feel like it's something that's been asked for a very long time, and I think the reason why they don't want to do it is because I think personally they want to see how good BGB is before deciding whether they axe RBGs altogether. I think that's the issue. It would be nice and simple. I mean, yeah, like I think I'm gonna kind of take a negative viewpoint on this and say like that's probably what they're thinking about, because as is said later on, I'm fairly sure the success of solo content is pretty much what is a focus here, because obviously they can see that people just want to come home and like queue up by themselves, don't have to queue with their friends. They have no plans to reduce to get rid of RPGs, because obviously people do want to queue with their friends. But I think they're going to look at the numbers and they're going to see it's like 0.2% of the player base that's playing it, and they're going to just shut it down. I think realistically that's probably why they're not committing to putting titles in there, because why would you put titles in there for something that you kind of want to get rid of eventually? So yeah. I think sadly that's kind of what's going to happen. And
I really hope not.
I mean, it would be sad if it did. I don't think they should do, but I think they should be incentivizing people wanting to queue up with other people by having actual, like, you know, like it would be as simple as doing Verdant Hero or Verdant Warlord. That's all you had to do for that top 0.1%, just for depending on which faction you're in.
Yep.
Either one, incredibly easy. Verdant Warlord, Verdant
Hero, Warlord. Sure.
Yeah,
Verdant
exactly.
Hero of the Alliance, Verdant Hero of the Horde.
You could do that, yeah, or change it depending on what you want to do. Like you could do that sort of thing, yeah. Verdant Hero, Verdant whatever works. And I think that would be amazing for the RPG community. That would mean something for them. Because at the minute you just get Hero, and that's it. That's all you do. You just keep queuing because you enjoy playing it. So I have to admit that obviously RPG players have the resilience to keep playing consistently despite having no reward, but also they're doing it for the love of it, and that they should reward them by giving them that title. It's not hard to do. I don't think that's a hard thing to do. I just think personally they don't want to do it because they don't want to commit to something that they might not continue to do.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, yeah. I think, as you said, though, I mean, right now their focus is just trying to get these new systems they're building into the game. So maybe, but yeah. Okay. Next question he had was.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Okay. Another thing that I wanted to ask you about is the vault. So we learned that obviously the vault isn't going to have PvP rewards anymore. I think delves are going to replace it. So I just wanted to know how PvPers, if they are at all, going to be compensated for kind of losing the gear from the vault, and also how sockets are going to work, if you could reveal that.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly need to compensate folks for not having things in the Great Vault. At its core, we want to make the conquest journey faster than it was in Dragonflight, with more control over how you sort of gear your character. So working on specifics and fine details, but the general goal here is so that you sort of buy more conquest gear per week than before. The way we're sort of approaching this for now is we're going to take what you would normally get from the Great Vault and bake that into the normal conquest economy, if that makes sense. Regarding sockets, yeah, totally get the fact that you're probably going to have less sockets if we do nothing with the Great Vault removals, and we're discussing on our end the best way to handle this, but that's certainly something we're talking about actively.
Okay, so sockets, I thought that there was a dual crafter thing being added that we could buy and do that to add sockets to gear, but as far as the Great Vault being gone, personally I think it's a great thing. I didn't like Great Vault RNG in being part of deterministic gearing.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm gonna throw it to Jake first, though. Jake, what's your take on George's response there to Great Vault and sockets?
It's a dual-edged sword, really. Since kind of BFA, we've sort of gotten used to this idea of a vault where you got extra items, like it was something extra that kind of gave you maybe potentially an edge. We got used to that. It was an RNG thing. That's something that we've kind of grown to hate, but also enjoy at the same time. When I heard that, I was a little bit sad. I thought, okay, well, basically people that do PvE content are going to have a leg up. They need to fix that socket situation. If PvPers don't have an opportunity to get sockets outside of having to do PvE content, it's going to just suck. It's going to be just boring. Like, you don't want to force us down that avenue unless we have to. Like, people will do Mythic Plus for the sake of doing Mythic Plus. I've done Mythic Plus today. Those bullion ideas is a cool idea, just something extra to do. That's something that I've wanted to do with friends. I've done it amidst my PvP. That's a normal thing. People will do it. I think if you force it down there to do the PvE in order to get sockets from the vault, then that's going to be really bad. I think that's not a good design. But I don't think they will do that. I think they will change that. I think they'll hear what people have to say and listen to what people have to say, and not take us down that road.
Interesting. I will say, listening to what he was saying, and you can kind of see it in how deterministic gearing happened over time, is once they implemented the vault and we were getting PvP gear from the vault, I'm pretty sure the conquest acquisition was decreased to compensate for that extra piece of gear we're getting. So if I'm listening to this, we're actually kind of going back to what we were used to getting, which was like, you could probably get like a weapon in week 1 with your conquest, rather than or like just really close to it, right? Rather than, I think right now you have to do like I think season 1 you had to do like 2 weeks worth in order to get enough conquest to buy a weapon or something like that. Unless you're like,
I don't think you can't
really
buy a
lucky.
two-handed. We can't buy a two-handed weapon week 1. I don't think.
Yeah, not yet.
But you can buy a one-hander.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if that means that come the War Within, we might be able to buy a two-hander week 1.
Yeah,
Or
maybe.
pretty close to it, maybe. Sorry, Big. Did you have a point you were going to talk on this whole vault and gem and socket thing?
I think removing PvP from the Great Vault kind of makes sense. I mean, it does make it a bit annoying to gear. It's kind of like a land. It's like playing Minesweeper, you know, like when you're gearing a character, knowing that you have this sort of vault waiting for you the next week, but you don't know what's in it. So any piece you buy this week could be a mistake. That's the part I never liked about the vault, is like, I never wanted to spend my conquest until I could see what I got in the vault, and then I could maybe more accurately spend my conquest. So I think this is all good news. Plus, I mean, right, psychologically, as much as it's nice to get a good vault, it's twice as worse to get a bad vault, you know?
Yeah.
And that's always a crappy feeling. And so I think overall it's a good thing. And it sounds like, you know, them speeding up the conquest acquisition process, again, a good thing. Getting people into PvP quicker is always a nice thing. So yeah, overall I like these answers.
Nice. All right.
Okay, so for now, it's like if we want to get the sockets, then we have to do the Delves, the Raid, and Mythic Plus.
TBD on that, actually.
Okay.
Still discussing stuff like that.
Okay, cool. I had one more question. I wanted to ask, especially with solo queue rated battlegrounds coming in, what kind of lessons the team learned for incentivizing healers. Obviously, there was a little bit of a problem with longer queue times for DPS players. So I was wondering if there's anything being done about incentivizing healers more, or what lessons that were learned from Dragonflight.
I was wondering if this will pop up. Yeah, it's a great question. Certainly not to talk about there. For the War Within specifically, we're re-examining the rating calculations for solo shuffle at its core. We tried a lot of stuff for solo shuffle queues. We've expanded the bounds for what matches healers are eligible for, but we definitely acknowledge that there's a lot more that we could do on our end there. In addition to examining the rating calculations for solo shuffle, we do have some new things that we're going to be trying out in the War Within, like bumping up MMR for healers in case you do see issues with their MMR. That all being said, this is definitely an ongoing conversation that we talk about a lot. Our goal really is to maintain the integrity of solo shuffle long term, and while we have some ideas that we're working on, nothing new that I can share at this point in time. I will say, how to make healers more accessible, and the role of healers in PvP is something we're trying to tackle from a game-wide perspective instead of just for content modes like solo shuffle.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So I think this one has a bit more to unpack. First and foremost, healers and MMR. So it sounds like they're going to adjust how much MMR healers actually get, because I think that was a bit of an issue to begin with. A big, I mean, you like to play healer, or you like to say you do, even though every time I talk to you, you're playing a DPS. What's your take on healer MMR in Solo Shuffle and what he said?
Yeah, I think the problem just kind of stems from math. Honestly, the fact that if a DPS goes 6-0 in a lobby, that means the healers each go 3-3, and I believe every other DPS goes 4-2. I think that's how the math works. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But anyway, there's all these sort of outcomes from Solo Shuffle that favor DPS, like little tiny outcomes from different match spreads. So I think ultimately that was kind of a structural problem. He did mention that they expanded the range in which the range of MMR healers could queue into.
Yeah,
that's both a good and a bad thing, because from a healer's perspective, you want to be queuing in lobbies that are higher rated than you, where the DPS are always higher. That's much better than the opposite direction, where you're queuing with lower rated DPS, just because you tend to have a bit more control and kind of can feel a bit more confident playing with higher rated players as a healer compared to lower rated healers. And I don't think DPS have that problem to the same degree. If you're a DPS and the healers in your lobby are both 200 MMR lower than you, I think that's going to impact you a lot less than healers playing with DPS who are 200 MMR lower than them. So I think because healers in general have less rating. So there's kind of a lot of structural problems with healers and MMR, and I'm glad to hear that they're addressing it. Also, to mention that it's a game-wide thing, I mean, this is something that's been kind of echoed in Mythic Plus, where the role of healers has fundamentally changed over the years, where you're not really doing maintenance healing anymore. You're just kind of there to press an external or do a big heal when someone takes a big hit of damage. I mean, that's typically how damage waves happen in Mythic Plus. It's not really tickle damage. It's usually just boom, big hit, and then like 30 seconds later, boom, big hit. And so
tank busters.
Right, so you kind of have to do a lot as a healer these days that's not actually tied with healing. So and it's kind of the same thing in PvP. I mean, to be a healer right now, you kind of have to do a lot of different things simultaneously. What we've kind of discovered in Solo Shuffle is the healers that tend to be the best are either the healers that can help their team win or make their team immortal. And if you can do both, you're just the best healer. Like Evokers right now are really good because they can help their team win, and they do like 250 healing per second, right? They can make their team immortal. Rest of Druids, they can make their team immortal, they can help their team win with Cyclone. Then you have a class like Mistweaver Monk. Not Fistweaver, but normal caster monk. Can only really heal, and doesn't really do that too well because it's vulnerable to CC chain. So really, to be a healer in Solo Shuffle, you kind of have to do a lot more than just heal. And so I can understand the fatigue that some players might have from that. But I mean, George is a healer main, so definitely acknowledges some of those feelings. I personally, I like healing. I've always liked healing. It's kind of cool when it changes, but I understand why some people wouldn't like it.
No, and sorry, I know I ribbed you a little bit there at the beginning. It was just in good fun.
Yeah.
Jake, how about you?
Yeah. No, I'm insulted for big actually. I'm really upset you took the piss. So
all right, that's it. Podcast is cancelled.
Yep. End the podcast. It's over, boys. No, I think it's. I mean, in all honesty, I don't play a healer, so my opinion is it's unfair and it should be it should be sorted out. I think there is a fundamental problem with Solar Shuffle in that regard. Like I think, as Big said, it boils down to math. At the end of the day, that is the situation that needs to be fixed. They need to go away. They need to figure out the coding for it, and there has to be something that allows either everyone in the lobby to kind of work in the way that it works, or not, and they kind of do something slightly separate. So I think there's not much really else to say on that front. It's just a very difficult situation, and I think once they fix it, Solar Shuffle will be fantastic, and it will be exactly what it needs to be. So that'll be awesome, and also the queue time will mean there'll be more people queuing, and people will enjoy it more. So I do think actually there was a lot of people queuing in season 1. Like season 1 had something good, and I don't know whether that was class design or something along those lines, but I think there is something that was good in season 1 of Dragonflight that just changed fundamentally going forward. And I feel like injections of MMR and just kind of allowing people to climb as they need to, and not sort of feel like they sort of go 3 and 3 and just lose MMR and get hard stuck. That's the problem. I think if they can figure that out, then everything will be okay.
Yeah, I agree. I was thinking about, and really, you kind of triggered me on this on Big. For healers, somebody mentioned, and I think it's actually true, is for healers, the MMR increases, and therefore the CR increases, is actually less than what DPS get. And the supposition there, the theory is that because healers have insta queues, they get less gains per game, so that because the queue times are so quick for them, within the same amount of in-game shuffle time, they get the same amount of MMR over a week. But so it's like this weird balance that was done somewhere along the way. I don't know if it's true, but
anecdotally, if I go like 2 and 4 or even like 1 and 5 on a DPS, like if I'm playing my Asa Rogue, I don't feel that as much as when I go 2 and 4 or 1 and 5 on a healer. For whatever reason, it feels way worse, and I do think it has to do something with how many points you lose as a healer when that happens, and it feels like it's more. I don't know if that's actually true, but it definitely feels like it's more for some reason.
Yeah.
I should honestly get that reflex add-on or whatever so I can actually see, but that's just my gut feeling. And when I lose a lobby as a DPS, it sucks, but I don't really care as much for some reason. But then when I lose a lobby as a healer, it just feels worse, and it feels like I lost a lot more, like on the score screen.
Yeah.
But again, I might just be making stuff up, but that's just how it feels.
Right. Yeah, feel and data. I'm sure the data probably just supports how you feel. But all right, let's see. I think that's it for Ven.
That's all I really had.
Yeah.
So Will, you got anything?
Sorry, can I just jump on that for a second? For the Solar Shuffle, are we going to still see in the War Within, if you have a healer against a healer and you go 3 for 3, is that still going to result in a 0 or negative MMR, or is that going to change?
Good question. And honestly, I'm not really sure, so I'll have to talk to the team about that.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
I'm gonna call that a little win. We'll see.
All right.
Big.
So, yeah, so you're a combat designer, so I have a combat question. So there was a major overhaul to CC durations in the middle of Dragonflight. I mean, typically longer CCs had their duration reduced, things like Polymorph, Fear, and so on. Some CC didn't have their CC reduced, like Cheap Shot, and probably Cyclone was another one. Can we expect to see more changes to the duration of CC in the War Within? And how are you guys feeling about the role of CC, and specifically maybe micro CC as an expression people tend to use to describe smaller CCs? How do you guys feel about those sort of micro disruptions in the current state of the game?
Good question. I like to call it short duration CC, but semantics. Yeah, like you mentioned, we did sort of do a CC philosophy update in 10.1, and that philosophy is sort of things that is one we're still pursuing for the War Within. When it comes to short duration CCs, like I mentioned previously, those could impact certain roles like healers quite a bit. It's something we talk about really very often on our end. But as of right now, we don't have nothing new to share there, unfortunately.
Okay.
All right. So at least they're talking about it. That means that they acknowledge it. They know about it. It's not head in the sand. Doing it, Jake. So, I want to go to Big first. It was his question to begin with. But what's your take? What do you think about the? I think, how did people say it on Twitter? The non-answer. This is BS. He didn't give a real answer. What do you think?
I mean, it's just kind of, this is the sort of thing that really, I think this was the thing that disturbed me the most in the interview, was that it's definitely something that people talk about a lot, right? You talk a lot about micro CC, and the thing that really sold it for me was short duration CC is what I call it. Semantics, I know. I'm like, come on. Doesn't matter what we say, right? Doesn't matter whether it's micro CC or short term CC. You can go on the forums, you can talk to people and understand that the levels of micro CC that does come out from various different classes is oppressive, and people don't enjoy that a lot of the time. But then again, I will also say that people don't enjoy super long CC. I just don't think that I think the thing that people need to be, what people need to decide, what Blizzard needs to decide with their sort of design is, how long do we want people to be in CC for? And if we want it to be like a sort of medium length of time, kind of a time for people to do a go, time for people to kind of set things up and potentially change something, then we need to reduce the amount of CC that's possible. I think the current problem is that just so many classes and specs have an unbelievable amount of CC. I mean, Demon Hunters are an example of this. They just have an unbelievable amount. Means that you can pretty much like control a whole team by yourself if you wanted to. So, and then also you couple that with the most insane pressure and damage, it becomes very oppressive. So for me, the thing that disturbed me was just that kind of concept of like, yeah, actually, we really like this idea. We like the fact that it's got this fast pace, and that you know like a warrior or a rogue can kind of like stun lock you for this period of time, but that's part of our sort of agenda. So I think this was the thing that really disturbed me the most, and I think it's a real shame that this is the pathway they're going. I feel like the better option would be to prune certain amounts of CC and then replace it with better, more interesting concepts of abilities. You know, I'm not saying like get rid of Stormbolt and get rid of Shockwave. I'm saying, like make it one or the other and then keep it that way. Like give every class and spec like 2 CCs that they can use, and kind of maintain it at a sort of medium length. And I think people have a lot more fun on that front.
Yeah. If only micro CC actually like had a DR to it too.
Yeah,
sure
I mean,
maybe it does, but it doesn't feel like it.
Some of it does, I think. But the thing is, the problem that you've got is like, take Infernal Stun, for example. Yeah. That's completely off the DR.
Yep.
And I think stuff like Cheap Shot, which wasn't reduced, but kind of, you can kill people in a triple DR Cheap Shot, or Kidney into a double Cheap Shot. It's just bonkers, the amount that you can do in that period of time. Now, obviously, it requires skill. I'm not saying that it doesn't require skill, but just the fact that it's even possible and that you just can't do it. Like, let's say you play like a class like a monk or like a demon hunter where you can't press anything in that go. You're done. You're over. It's over. Your trinket becomes incredibly valuable in a matchup, and then your entire class gets completely taken out. Like, I understand that's the difference of the nuances of different classes versus whatever. You don't want everything homogenized. I get that, but I think it's just there is a serious problem with the amount of micro CC when, as a caster, you're fake casting and you're trying to get something, and realistically that melee doesn't need to press anything other than stun, because they've just stopped you from doing anything. Like, it's the classic of warriors literally on their mounts leap, charge, stun, like Stormbolt as they're going through. Like the first thing they do is CC you for 3 seconds, so you can't get anything done within the range because their gap closers are so incredibly good.
Yeah.
So I think that design is a bit wrong in my head.
I don't disagree unless I'm playing my warrior, and then I'm like, Big. What's your? How did you feel about his answer to your question?
Well, one thing I do disagree on is I don't think micro CC affects healers that much. It's more something I feel when I play a DPS, that I feel like no matter what I do, if I want to do anything offensive, if I want to do any setup type stuff, if I want to try to land a kill, I have to kind of plan around the fact that I'm going to be shut down like by 80 different things. So that's to me where micro CC is most annoying. It's funny, like if I check, and you can do this yourself, if you check your details and look at CC received, it's very rare that a healer is on top. It's usually a DPS that's on top of CC received. And you know, when I play my rogue, I get CC'd a lot as a rogue, which makes sense. People don't want to die, but at the same time, it's just kind of annoying to deal with so many different little things. So again, I don't know if it's a problem they can easily fix, because it seems to be fundamental to talent trees, where, for instance, as Jake gave the example of warrior, like Stormbolt and Shockwave are both available to warriors at the same time on the talent tree. So I think for them to like tone down micro CC would require them to do a major overhaul to the entire talent tree, which I don't think they'd want to do after they just already did a major overhaul to the entire talent tree. So I think it's just something that is here to stay. I do think there is definitely some wiggle room though to like increase the duration of polymorph again back to its 8 seconds. I thought it was really sad. I mean, of course I'm biased, but I thought it was really sad that they nerfed blind to 5 seconds. Like, it just feels so silly to press, and it kind of removes this iconic ability from like a rogue. You just don't feel like it's a cool ability to press anymore as a rogue. You just kind of feel annoyed that you have it almost. And so there's kind of a lot of discrepancies still, like the fact that blind is only 5 seconds, and I believe warrior fear is 6, but they're the same CD. Warrior fear is AoE. Yeah. You know, it doesn't instantly break on damage. There's like all these weird discrepancies now that CC has been nerfed that weren't there previously. So yeah, I definitely like to see some shift back to the old CC philosophy where some things should be longer, like polymorph, blind, and that's totally okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, at least they're talking about it, right?
Right, yes.
Hopefully they listen to this and hear what we're saying and make better changes. We'll see. All right, next, what else did you ask now? And
one thing we saw a lot of at the beginning of Dragonflight was regular class tuning. I mean, there's tunings, it seemed like, every single week. As someone who maintains tier lists, it was quite difficult to keep up with that. So what are the team's plans for PvP tuning passes in the War Within? Will we expect to see regular hotfixes like we saw throughout Dragonflight?
Well, I apologize for giving you a lot of work for the tier lists.
I like the tier lists, to be fair. I like doing it, so.
Tier lists are fun. Yeah, like you mentioned, we sort of really revved up our tuning approach for Dragonflight. A lot of it was due to all the new systems that we're adding, knowing that we'll have to do a lot more thorough and rigorous and constant updates. And I think players liked it quite a bit, obviously, and we like doing it. So when it comes to the War Within, we plan on sort of doing the exact same cadence, depending on how things go. Sometimes things can get delayed because of, events like AWC or MDI, and we play it by ear for what's appropriate. But generally, we like to lean on doing more regular tuning passes when possible.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, a side question. Do you guys sort of maintain maybe some internal tier list or like some concept of a tier list when you're thinking about class design?
Yeah, so I have a whiteboard right here that you can see. And what happens is every single morning I go up there and I write like nerf Frost Mage, and it happens. No, I'm
Oh.
kidding. No, I'm kidding. No, I mean we talk a lot about class balance and PvP balance quite a bit. There's no like internal tier list that we sort of own, mostly because if you look at any tier list and compare it to any other tier list, things are going to change depending on the content that you do. So no, there's no internal tier list that we handle besides my joke whiteboard that has been updated in like 2 weeks.
All right, so great little piece there. I love the fact that he admitted that tuning is held off for esports. Something that we assumed, but now it's confirmed. That's how I took out of that. I don't know. Big.
Yeah, I mean I find it ridiculous when I read on Twitter like people are saying, "Oh, Blizzard stopped caring about tuning in Dragonflight," which is absolutely ridiculous because there was a period of time where literally every single week there would be class tuning. Like literally every single week for like 8 weeks straight. It was pretty crazy. So I think that was...
Sorry, I remember because we would talk about this on the podcast. You'd be like and as we're doing the podcast, new hotfixes were coming in.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
so they definitely went pedal to the metal for a while. So then it was kind of like shocking when we had this very long period of time last season where Demon Hunters were like untouched after their rework for a while. And then to learn that it was the AWC that was causing these delays, to me, it was like really frustrating. I was like, that's ridiculous. Like, and it's funny because like all I wanted to do was update the tier list, and I was like waiting to do it, but it was just delayed for I think 6 weeks. I want to say there was no tuning. However long the MDI and AWC was, and it was pretty ridiculous. So I think I don't like this. I mean, I understand why they would want to hold off on tuning for after an AWC, but like, why couldn't they just like freeze the tournament realm or something? You know, like there's got to be some way to handle this without keeping the entire ladder hostage, right? I mean, they're basically keeping everyone hostage to these demon hunters just because there was 50 people playing in the tournament. You know, it seemed ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
That they wouldn't be able to just freeze the patch on the TR. Because it's too much. But I do think, certainly Blizzard did do a really good job tuning throughout this expansion, at least for these periods of time where they're just doing crazy tuning every week. So I'm glad that they're going to go back to that. It's going to be more work for me, but fine. You know, I don't mind making tier lists so much.
How about you, Jake? Did you catch the conversation there, or what do you think about the tuning passes and his the fact that they talk about it but don't always do it?
Why wouldn't I have caught the conversation there? So I feel like you're making some wild accusations tonight. I don't know whether to feel insulted or not. But what I will feel instead is I feel as if, I understand why they do that for the tuning, but I agree with Big about it. Like it makes no sense that they can't just freeze things on a tournament realm. Why is the tournament realm so linked to the current iteration? Why can't they freeze the patch, as it were? I imagine that's probably because the lack of dev attention to kind of monitor that sort of thing is present. It just makes it easier for them, which is the shame. Like it's the amount of effort you put in is the amount of effort you get out. Sort of like it's the reason why I feel like WoW PvP never has reached its glory that it should have done, is because the effort that went in was very minimal, and so therefore kind of what came out conversely was not great. So
I think no competition makes it hard.
Exactly.
All right.
I think that's the biggest thing. Like it just would make sense. I feel like tuning should be done as regularly as it has been doing in the first season. So I'd like to see more of that kind of come back in the war then.
Me too. I want Big to get more work.
Yes. More tier lists.
More tier lists. All right. 6 minutes left in the video.
Okay. And then my final question is about incentives, and this one is maybe a bit more complicated, but it's pretty clear now to me that, I think to all of us, that a lot of players are motivated to PvP partially by the prospect of earning seasonal rewards or cosmetics, whether it be like the 1600 tier token, 1800 elite set, gladiator, and so on. But with every passing season, these numbers can have very different meanings. Right, in a highly inflated season like Dragonflight Season 1, players might hit a rating benchmark that they are able to get in a following season with less inflation. I'm just wondering, has there been any discussion on potentially redesigning the rating system in WoW PvP to make seasonal progression a bit less confusing to some players?
Yeah. I know I said this quite a lot, but we do talk a lot about this as well. When it comes to like how seasons feel season to season, our goal may be kind of obvious, but our goal is to have the difficulty feel the same season over season, and there's a ton of factors that influence that, you know, the meta or participation or tier sets or class updates or just who's playing. But our goal is to have it feel the same seasons over season. However, I can say that we are discussing some rating threshold adjustments for rated rewards with the goal of making them a bit more accessible. Can't really share specifics in terms of like what's moving where, but we are actively discussing moving some stuff around. That being said, we're going to keep the prestigious stuff prestigious. Gladiator mounts will still be gladiator mounts, but some of the other rewards will be sort of more spread among the content, or more spread among the rating bands.
Okay, this one actually got me excited. I didn't react as much to the actual when he was saying it, but I was waiting for like the shoe to drop. I was waiting for like something else, but he just didn't. But the sound of moving rewards more dispersed across a ladder and not being just like 1800, 2100, 2400 is pretty exciting to me.
Yeah, it sounded, I mean, if you remember in Dragonflight, like the gear upgrade system, I think that was kind of their intention behind gear upgrades, is it was like, you know, in their own words, it was a granular source of progression, but it was just like the lamest thing possible, you know, upgrading gear. It was not a fun reward. It was kind of almost like a punishing reward in some way. So I do think, yeah, they need more benchmarks dispersed throughout the rating system. Again, if you just want to go to Drustvar and you can look at rating distribution curves, you see like these spikes at 1600, 1800, and 2100, which are the spikes where you have sort of these big rewards, you know, the tier token, elite set, and the weapon illusion. And then, you know, those are just these massive spikes, and so a lot of people just sort of stop playing at those benchmarks. It's just like, why, you know? If there was only a way to get people to sort of push more and sort of have more incentives sort of baked in there throughout the journey, I think that'd be good for everyone. And yeah, I mean, making rewards more accessible. I liked his answer that they're gonna keep the prestigious things prestigious. I know there's been a lot of discussion I see that on Reddit or maybe on the forums about why is Gladiator 2400 still? Like, why can't it be 2100? And again, I don't know. I think Gladiator should even be a bit more exclusive than it currently is. Maybe I'm just being a boomer here, but I like the old system where it was percentage based. I think just the title of Gladiator carries with it such tremendous like power and prestige and exclusivity that it's been weird to me to have it be something that's a flat number, 2400 and like 50 wins or whatever. So it's, yeah, I think keeping things prestigious, I like that, and then incentivizing or adding more incentives, that's good. I do think though that this inflation problem is something they need to figure out in some way, because it is a bit jarring to go from one season to another and just feel like you've gotten worse just because the number is lower. You know, that's not a good feeling.
Yeah. To feel like you're progressing as a player and as a, the spec you like to play, and you can't season over season see a bigger number next to your name because participation. That sucks. Jake, your take?
Yes. I think I pretty much agree with Big on this one. I don't have actually much else to say on that front. I think I'm pretty much in line with what he said.
All right. Easy peasy. Okay.
All right. I think that's it from me. Ben or Garethar, do you have any follow-up questions?
Actually, I had one question, and I maybe should know this. I don't know if this is information that's released yet, but is the regular rated Battleground format staying, or is like the new Battleground Blitz replacing it?
Good question. So we have no plan of deprecating rated battlegrounds before the War Within launch. We're really excited for RBG Blitz. However, we fully understand that there's a ton of players and communities out there that still love and enjoy rated battlegrounds. So as of right now, they're going to exist side by side. So no plan of deprecating rated battlegrounds.
Cool.
I wanted to ask that, and Ben took it from me.
I'm a little concerned about that because I know, looking at what happened when Solo Shuffle went rated, Dragonflight Season 1, RSS was extremely successful, but the threes ladder saw a big hit of participation, which then affected MMR and a bunch of other issues. I'm more than a little, and this is voicing also from a bunch of community people, very concerned about what's going to happen to the rated battleground ladder, which is already a very small community, and what's going to happen when the number of people who can now just solo queue up or dual queue up, and what's going to happen to that rated 10v10 ladder, especially with no new seasonal title. Like, it's the same hero title, no new rewards, nothing to make people actually still want to play that other than the people that are diehard 10v10 pre-mades.
It's a really valid concern. I will say that our goal is for players to continue to play both. However, with the inclusion of RBG Blitz, we know that a lot of players just prefer solo queue activities, and that's the way they want to consume PvP content. Like you mentioned, with the success of Rated Solo Shuffle, we've certainly seen that. But at the same time, there's players that don't want to do solo queue content, want to play with their friends or guildies or communities, and it's really on us to sort of make sure both of those avenues exist, which is why I mentioned we're keeping Rated Battlegrounds before the War Within launch. In terms of how we're going to tackle it, it's really going to be an ongoing effort. I'm really happy that we're making a new battleground, because when we make new battlegrounds, they go to a lot of different features like RPG Blitz and Rated Battlegrounds, and I'm hoping that with our continued sort of efforts to make more battlegrounds and more arenas, we can sort of keep both buckets of communities happy. But the concern that you mentioned is definitely top of mind for us and something that we discuss. I think a lot of it's going to depend on how RBG Blitz plays out and player reception to it, but until we sort of have it go live and check it out and see how people react, it's hard to really say anything specific there.
Okay.
So 10v10 is a thing. 8v8 is going to be a thing as a rated ladder. So it's very similar to RSS and 3v3. And we're getting no new rewards for rated. There are going to be titles and possible rewards for Battleground Blitz. Oh man, that's a nail in the coffin. I'm sorry. Go big.
Yeah, and I don't know if we want to wrap this up soon. We're going.
Yeah, we're going to wrap this up. I'm going to skip the rest.
But the thing you say after this is the checkmate. I believe you say, because he said, "Oh, people seem to like solo content," and your response to this immediately after is, just because something is popular doesn't mean that people are enjoying it more than other content, right? Yeah. Maybe the reason why Solo Shuffle is so popular is because it's the only way people can play, but they'd prefer to play 3v3 if they could. And I think that's like a really intelligent point, where and I completely understand it from like a content brain perspective. Like, if you're Blizzard and you see, oh, so many people are playing Solo Shuffle, that must mean they like it. You know, there's kind of a fallacy at play there that you point out. Like, well, no, they might be playing it because they can't play anything else. And that's definitely a valid concern for RBGs. And I mean, we don't have to beat around the bush. BG Blitz is going to destroy RBGs if there's nothing done to RBGs. There is no way that doesn't happen. We saw what happened in 3v3.
Yep.
And RBGs right now are incredibly dire.
Sorry, imagine what would have happened to the 3v3 ladder if RSS went live and there wasn't Gladiator, there wasn't a mount, there wasn't Elite Gear through threes.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. And so I think you have to be insanely optimistic to think that these two systems can exist side by side and, you know, they'll sort of feed off of one another and they'll both live happily ever after. Like, there's no way. There's absolutely 0% chance. Like, RBGs will die. Full stop.
Yeah. Jake, you have any hot takes on this?
Yeah, no, I entirely agree. I think I said this earlier. It's the issue you've got is, I mean, I personally think they want to get rid of it. I mean, that's the reason why they've not done titles, the reason why they're not committing. I mean, majority of his rhetoric is, we're keeping it for now. It's what's happening for now. And that's real sad. Like, and then he goes on to say, well, it's our duty to kind of do both. But a very simple fix would be to add a title. It doesn't require much. I feel like that's not a difficult thing to do. So what's the reasoning behind it? What's the reasoning that you don't add that? There has to be something. And for me, the thing is that they want BGB to replace it totally. They want to kind of go down the path that Helinka was talking about when he was still at Blizzard and was kind of going, we need to radically do something to RBGs. Let's get rid of it. Let's turn it 8v8 kind of thing. I think that's sadly this kind of situation that's going on.
Yeah. Oh, well, all right. Okay.
But I want the capstone just very quickly on this. The capstone, I think this is a great first step. And that what was shown is that there are people who PvP who can ask great questions and challenge the team and sort of say, hey, this is what we're sort of looking at, and why isn't this the way that it is? And he'll go back and think about all those things, which is great. But then it gives us the opportunity in the future to have more time with PvP devs. And I say PvP devs with the kind of, you know, sort of bunny ears kind of thing. It's sort of in commas and quotes, however you want to put it. It's sort of that's someone that's involved in PvP that we get to talk to. So this is a great first step. I wouldn't see it as a negative thing, any of this that's gone on. I think it's a great first step to having some form of communication, or at least getting back to the communication that we originally had, and should continue to do so.
I fully agree. I think you nailed it right there. And I'm honestly really happy that we have a person here who is involved in the combat team, involved in the design of the game, and obviously has some direct influence on some of those decisions. And as an avid PvPer, like he enjoys PvP, and whatnot. And yeah, so okay, I'm gonna finish off the last 2 minutes of this. I think we kind of already covered it, and then we'll end out the podcast, and we'll save all the news and the events for some other time. But here we go.
I'm a little worried that a massive amount of participation is indicative of people liking it, rather than, because just with RSS, there's a number of people that enjoy threes more, but they can't find teammates or anything, so they just end up queuing RSS because that's where everybody is, right? And so it looks like there's a lot of people that are liking it, whereas it's just the thing to do. So.
That's a good point as well. Yeah.
All right. I think that's about it for any follow-ups I actually have. I really appreciate your time, George. Actually, Elliot, Van Ricky, any parting shots that you want to throw in there?
No, I just want to say thanks so much for meeting with us and talking with us. It's been a pleasure, and I really appreciate your time.
Super fun to do.
As a fellow healer, I appreciate this opportunity. Healers rock. We deserve respect too.
We do, yeah.
We're the hard grinders, of the PvP community.
Mm-hmm. We're the ones that matter. I'm kidding. Everyone else matters, but we're the ones that matter the most. We're the backbone of any group. But yeah, like I said, thank you so much. It was really fun. I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but we're currently planning on having the DePaul Ravine go to public alpha. I'm not sure when this will go live, but very soon. And following that, when we sort of go later on in the alpha beta cycle, we want to do some community events around both the DePaul Ravine and RBG Blitz. If you've ever done like a PvP with the Blues, I love doing those. Those are super fun. So yeah, I look forward to that. It should be a fun time.
Will it be available in Wargame on Alpha as well, or is it only going to be through the queue system?
It should be available via Wargame, but I'll double check on that.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier to get 10 people to Wargame than it is to get 20 people to queue up. So.
I see.
All right. Well, hey, thank you again.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. So that's that. I will say, effective today, Alpha just got updated earlier today, and they added in the BG into the patch notes and everything. So it is fully live. And if somebody queues up into a BG on the Alpha, it's the only one that queues up. So hopefully we're able to get some game time. And like I said, Big you noted, Mr. GM actually has a video out there. He was able to get some community people to 5v5 queue up, 5 forward 5 alliance, and got the queue to pop. I wasn't able to get I was trying to do it war game wise, couldn't get that to go, but I'm hoping that this weekend I'll be able to get something and maybe get some video out there so people can see the gameplay. But yeah, this is gonna be a fun thing to do.
Yeah,
and then yeah,
I'm down for that, by the way.
Oh yeah, awesome.
If you just message me if I'm around, I'm 100% down for that. I would love to get some time in the PG to see what it's like.
Awesome. Yeah, we need the peoples. When I was trying to get it done, I was just DMing people that were online. I'm like, and they're like, I don't PvP. I'm like, I don't care. You just need to
come in.
Yeah, just like at least we need at least the minimum to get in, please. So, all right, I think that's about it. Oh man, I want to talk about all this other stuff, but I can't. We don't have time. Kind of pushing the limits here.
They'll be in the show notes anyway, so you'll be able to see them, and I suppose that means more for us to talk about next time.
Yes, indeed. I do want to point out one quick thing. Obviously, this weekend is AWC Cup 4. There's been some upsets. There's been some upsets. Unitas, who usually struggles to stay in the uppers, is in the top 4 uppers for this cup.
Let's go.
Nice.
It's awesome.
Yeah. They knocked out Power Frogs, and so they're up against Void GG first day. So that'll be interesting to see what. That'll be Saturday. So because tomorrow's going to be EU first. But yeah, okay. Anyways, that's about it. Shout outs to you first, Big Moran. Who would you like to shout out this week?
Shout out to myself because it's my birthday tomorrow. So if you want to give me thousands of dollars and food and happiness and love, you can surely do that. My PayPal's open. But or I mean, if you're Blizzard listening, you can nerf Demon Hunter. That's totally fine too. But yeah, shout out to me for my turning 31, and it's kind of cool, I guess. Not much to say, but
it's very fun.
Yes, shout out to me.
Shout out to you, indeed. And again, happy birthday. A little ahead of the time, but yeah, kudos to you, man. Way to make another year around the sun.
Thank you.
Jake, shout outs for you.
Yeah, I'm gonna shout a big shout out to Nethy and their team going forward. I wish them the best of luck in the top 8 for EU. I think we talked about solo shuffle and what it brings to players and allows them to have opportunities to do it. And I think I've been very privileged to be able to watch Nethy go from someone that hadn't had a R1 to having an R1 and then also be an AWC competitor. I think it's really awesome. So big shout. I'll watch you tomorrow. Good luck. I think that's all I'm going to say on that.
That's awesome.
Oh, and also big shout out to Big Moran for a birthday tomorrow.
Of course.
Joining me at 31. Hell yeah.
I'm going to give a shout out to Mortai. If anybody doesn't know, Mortai, been on the show before. Avid, passionate PvPer in the community. Many PvP communities out there, Discord servers and whatnot. And he decided to, without any coercion from us whatsoever, decided to make a post on the official forums to highlight the interview that we did, and then kind of ended up taking the brunt of it, unfortunately, because official forums are not nice. There's there's some issues there. Anyways, so I just want big love to Mortai for doing that, and I didn't even think about doing it. Kudos to you for doing that, man, and I really appreciate you putting it up there. So, ching. All right, outro. Big. Can you tell our listeners where they can find us on the internet?
Oh my gosh, I do not have the show notes up right now, but I'm gonna go off of memory. Yes, you can find us on Twitter at technically_PvP, or if you want, you can send us an email at technically. Oh geez, I'm already messing this up. I know.
You're doing good. Technicallypvp at gmail.com.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Go email that. Okay. What he just said. All right. Now, Jake, what about you?
Well, I mean, you could also visit the Bonus Roll website to find the podcast directory with us and many other great shows at www.bonusroll.gg. This directory also has a review system, so head over there and tell everyone what you think of your favorite shows, including our own.
Indeed. And on top of all that, we have our Discord shared with the Bonus Roll Productions and a whole bunch of other great shows underneath that umbrella, that great group of friends here. And you can go there and you can find a bunch of other discussions we're having when we're not doing the podcast. And I think we mentioned it before, but as always, links for everything we talk about are going to be in the show notes, so you can find that stuff there. Thank you all for listening, and we'll chat with you next time. Good night, everybody.
Good night.